Whatever.
Hi Planetario, it's Aerostar here. One thing that's always challenging in a game like Figure Fantasy is that with all the new figurines that are released and with the limited room in the Otaku Zone, it's trying to figure out which figure to place in there, not only to decorate and make it look cool, but also to get that level up boost to use both in PvE and PvP content. So I've come up with my own little tier list or priority list for Figure Fantasy figurines by class, so you can have a reference as to which figurines you may want to prioritize putting into your Otaku Zone. Just a friendly reminder, top tier doesn't mean that you necessarily have to level up that figurine up first. Use whatever figurine copies that you have the most of to get the 5 figurines to level 220 so that you can have all the figurines in the Otaku Zone at level 220. You can slowly work on getting copies of the top tier figurines to get them to 5 diamonds so you can start painting them, but the most important thing is to get that 5 figurines at that max level at 220 to get everybody in the Otaku Zone to level 220. I'm going to be really brief on my reasoning for each figurine, so if you would like to chat more about a particular one, leave a comment below and let's discuss. Alright, so let's start with my favorite class in-game, which are the Vanguard. In A tier, we have Rin, Yamazaki, and Yoko, and I think they best represent the Vanguard in their ability to be like a semi-tank with minor heals and good DPS capabilities. Rin is a damage machine, both in her passive and her skill. She works pretty well as a damage healer with any team build. Yamazaki is a similar figurine to Rin that is based on criticals and also has some heals. Yoko, I think probably is the squishiest of the 3, but has a super cool ghost state that can really work out in pinch situations. In B tier, we have Yuna, Zhao Yun, Alfred, and Suzumi. Yuna, I think, works pretty well in PvP situations where she renders the ultimates useless in a dual state. Zhao Yun is my personal favorite that does decent damage with a passive that works well with his ultimate to attack multiple enemies at once at the cost of his health. I prefer Zhao Yun over Alfred, who is also in the same tier, as Zhao Yun's multi-target is determined by placement and can deal extra damage with design letters, while Alfred is a random reduced damage, although with his design letters he can target 3 enemies instead of 2. Alfred does have a pretty decent debuff. However, in terms of long fights, I think Zhao Yun comes out at top. Suzumi I placed in B tier because I absolutely adore her design and she works well with placed with right figurines like Miku with her box summons. Overall, she is pretty weak and can die pretty quickly since she's often in the front end, takes the front end of the damage, and heals are based on the box friends defeated. In C tier, we have Midori and Yuna. Midori, for whatever reason, works really well in those PvP content that sets the heroes at the max level, but in reality, she doesn't really live up to it unless placed in a really good Frost team. Yuna's kit is really nothing special and only focused on fast starts and not sustained, so I wouldn't use her except in the case of maybe not having other Vanguards to build. For defenders, Megan, Crusoes, and Ayane make my A-list. Megan is definitely the tank when it comes to her own survivability. Crusoes has great crowd control, and Ayane is in my opinion the best team support tank. In B rank, Sanada I think is underrated with his counterattacks once his accuracy bonuses increase, while Astaroth in my opinion is one of the saddest Night 9 figures with mediocre attacks, although he looks pretty cool, especially in his dragon state. In C rank, we have Vasily and Rico. Rico can potentially have good crowd control, while Vasily is really just a base tank based on his kit, so nothing too special there. Overall, in general, I'm not a huge fan of defender types, but I think it's pretty clear, at least for now, on the figures that we have on the global server, Megan, Crusoes, and Ayane are gonna be your top picks for the tanks. For healer, Zhu Liang definitely comes out on top in the A tier for support to the team, basically also taking the role of the badge for lethal damage absorption. The rest of the healers in the game so far, Zephyr, Erixia, Zhao Yu, Mako, Aoi, and Sakura, I put in B tier as I don't really think there's a bad healer in the game to put into the C tier. Zephyr will be your pick to boost ultimates for your team. Mako will be great in enhancing team burst damage. Aoi is good for general stable stat increase. Zhao Yun for speed teams. Erixia, depending on who you pair her with, will be great, like Ayane and other tankier heroes. She is kind of like the go-to healer in the beginning of the game, but you do have to kind of pair her with the right figurines at the end game, otherwise you're gonna end up killing or suiciding your team pretty quickly. Sakura can be very effective in PvP situations if paired with the right figurines again, especially in a speedy team build where she can kind of silence and render the heroes useless as they silently fall to the ground in the midst of the barrage of the other heroes like Militarists and Vanguards. For specialists, we have Inherits, Embers, and Xantha Kane at the A tier for obvious reasons. Inherits is just a solid figurine with support and damage. Xanthia is Xanthia with a contribution of additional damage and damage over time. At B tier, we have Harriet, Irina, and Xiao Xiao, or Xiao. Yes, him, the cool guy. Harriet, I think, is a good figurine for Let's Red teams. I think her effectiveness really falls in any other team build. Her damage and her summon bombers aren't the best at damage, but can be strategically used to block attacks, blind enemies, and also restore energy, especially to Let's Red figurines. Irina is cool if you get her to stacking damage, and Xiao Xiao is cool with his ally splash damage and reduced heals. At C tier, we have Sani, Osuke Okada, and Akachi Mitsuhide. All meteoric area attacks that requires a team built around to be highly effective. Last but not least, we have Militarists that are the glass cannons, and at A tier we have Zarola, Hatsune Miku, and Lu Blue. Zarola is a monster for single target attacks, although she can attack multiple enemies. Lu Blue is like an AoE version of Zarola. Hatsune Miku is just a goddess in terms of both single target, and that's like an AoE and dishes up massive damage, especially with summon supports. At B rank, we have Vaseline, who is getting a pretty new skin, by the way, which I am definitely gonna grab, and Camille. Vaseline is awesome for AoE, also like Lu Blue, and will work well in slower teams versus Lu Blue. Camille is an awesome figurine, just very weak in the single target arena, so placed him in tier B. At C, we have Rie, Norris, Ophelia, and Roma. Norris can do a lot of damage, but is very niche and requires a team build, so I placed her at C. Rie can be a great opener, but she loses her overall effectiveness throughout the battle. Ophelia is the opposite and is a finisher, but in most cases, I don't really see her needed in most team compositions as a finisher. Roma, I think, is not as effective because it's passive that attacks the enemy once they release a skill, but in most cases, you'll want to avoid them using a skill and or die when it happens. Okay, so those are my tiers for each class and the short reasons why. Do you agree or disagree? Let me know down in the comments below. And if you like random gaming content, especially on mobile gacha games, please consider leaving a like and subscribing. I post every Wednesday and weekends. Thank you all so much for watching. Stay safe and take care.